John, for
You're
coming all this way to do this for us. We
anything for
appreciate
Bob.
it. Yeah. How are you and Bob related?
Bob and I are brothers. There were 5 boys and some girls. We don't really remember how many, but we were. Bob was the middle child, and I was the youngest boy. So,
Okay. What did you and your siblings learn from your parents about having a strong work ethic?
you know, we had we had different parents. Our parents were fairly old. Mom, I'm going to tell you, Mom was 42, I think, when she had me. So she was about 39 or 38. They had seen the world. They'd done a lot. They taught us a lot of things, and they let you learn on your own. It was it was interesting. It really was. Dad was old. Dad would be like 111 if he was alive today.
Wow.
So they were fairly old people.
Yeah, because of the voices in
Yeah.
the kitchen.
Yeah,
and
there's
stuff
a lot
like
of
that.
that.
Yeah, and I'm gonna have to ask you that one again because it confused me when you said you had different parents.
Well,
Are you thinking that
No, that
because
they are different.
they were
What you
they were
oh,
different
the
style.
parents were different.
They were different
Oh,
style than
oh,
what our
okay,
friends
okay,
were.
yeah, all right, okay, all right, yeah,
You got to keep up.
yeah,
Thank you back there.
yeah. Don't
I-
pay attention to the lady behind the curtain.
Yeah, sure.
Don't
I've
even
I've
look
heard that
over
for
there.
years.
She's not there. Yeah, I'm kind of going with where, I'll get to the garden later. Okay, so let's go over that again. Are we good, guys?
We're good.
Okay, thank you. What did you and your siblings learn from your parents about having a strong work ethic?
Um, I think because of their age, I think they already had a good work ethic in them. They weren't learning as we were. They really developed us to go out on our own. Most of us in our family were self-employed, and I think that came from our parents. You learn to you could do better, and if you did better, you got the rewards, and that's probably how Bob got. Bob probably succeeded more than any of us. He did. And so I think that's what we learned.
Okay. Did your parents encourage Bob and you and your siblings to follow your dreams? If so, please provide an example.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We had, and I think Sue touched on this, we had a machine shop. Dad was sort of a farmer blacksmith, and like I could weld by the time I was 9. And, Bob was that way too. But if Dad saw us building something out there, all of a sudden we'd find some iron laid out there that he'd gone and bought to help. He had an idea what you were doing. So he encouraged us that way. If they saw a little roadblock, they knew we didn't have money to go buy stuff like that. They would provide things like that. So,
Are they still making noise out there?
No,
We
we're
okay? Okay, good. What were Bob's interests and hobbies during childhood?
Bob's interest, I think he was mechanically inclined, pretty much. But he wanted to know why things worked more than just making them work. And that's what, when you develop that interest that way, you delve in, you understand a lot more and you achieve a lot more, I think. Hobbies, hobbies and what we did growing up, there was a very thin line there. We Bob dug a hole out in our orchard one time that was about 10, maybe 10 foot long and about 6 foot deep, and covered it with plywood, and then put dirt on top of it and had a manhole that was hidden. We had a hidden room out in the orchard. Dad never knew about it until Dad ran over it with a tractor, and the tractor went in. So that was hobbies. Trying to figure out different things to do on the farm. We were away from other kids, so you kind of entertained yourself there.
Or each other, it sounds like.
Yeah, yeah.
Describe a few of Bob's personality traits that have remained with him through the years.
Some of Bob's personality traits are to outdo you. I'll give you an example of one. My older brothers, Danny and Pat's not with us anymore. they had a wardrobe that they were given for their clothes, and there were locks on the doors with no keys. And so Pat made a key that fit his, went out in the shop and made one, and Danny made a key that fit his. Bob made one key that fit both of them. And then he showed my brothers that it would do it, and then he threw the key away. That's an example. That would be, he showed him he could do it, but you're not going to get it.
Can you remember some of Bob's early entrepreneurial projects when he was a child? Do you have a lemonade stand, or did he sell anything like that?
Not really. I can't think of, money wasn't a thing. I can't think of.
That's okay.
Okay.
It didn't apply. That's okay.
Yeah,
I don't think we heard that from anybody anyway. How do you think Bob's responsibilities as a child helped to shape him as an adult?
Yeah, being a middle child, Bob's responsibilities as a middle child, I think probably he caught some from the older ones and he gave it to the younger ones. I don't remember fighting with Bob. Larry, my brother Larry and I, we'd kind of tussle, but Bob was always kind of there. Bob seemed to let us in anywhere. We could tag along. And, I think that's a good trait,
He's very calm, very easygoing all the time, we've heard from people.
Yeah, he is. He thinks things through.
Okay. You shared with us that your father had a large garden and you each were assigned management as you grew older. Tell us how Bob did in this role when it was his responsibility.
Well, it goes back to some of Bob's responsibilities in the garden were tillage of it. He built a tractor that if you change sprockets around on it, it would go very slow with a lot of power. That way you could pull tillage machines through it. And if you change the sprockets, you could put it on the road and it'd go 60, with no steering wheel. It had a vice grip that you used to steer it with. But, that was a way of getting, you didn't have to actually get out there and hoe or anything. You could put a machine in to do it, and he had fun building the machine. So, he put his practical side into his fun side,
Pretty entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty entrepreneurial. He told us too that he decided that instead of putting all the carrots here and all the this, and that's where I was kind of going. So do you remember that?
Yeah, but if you put it together, you don't have to walk as far,
So explain how that worked.
Well, when you were given responsibilities to do it, our parents didn't oversee you. So until the garden came up, they really didn't know what we did. So I guess that's probably as much as I remember. I was pretty young.
Okay. All right. Can you share a funny story about Bob?
Oh, yeah.
One that he's approved?
Yeah. A good story with Bob was we were supposed to be up pulling the weeds out of soybeans on the farm south of our house. And we got into a clod fight. And I crawled up on one of the shed roofs to get away from Bob and Larry. And they were throwing clods at me, so I got on the other side of the roof and held on. And they threw clods at my hands, and I slid down the tin roof. And when I got towards the ground, I landed on a wrist, and it was hurt. I fell probably 10, 12 foot. So Bob thought I had it out of joint, so he had me throwing clods to get it back in joint. Well, I'd broken it. But we spent a day trying to get it back in joint. And so it was kind of funny.
Maybe that's what led him to be an EMS.
Yeah. Yeah, he knew he needed training.
Lots of injuries.
Yeah. Can you share a story that demonstrates how determined and focused he can be?
But it goes a lot. One of the ways that I can show his determination was there were machines in the shop that were way above his pay grade. That he was too young to be running these machines, and they didn't work. If he got them, they were probably in disrepair. I remember a metal lathe that he got from somewhere. I don't know where it came from, and it had a lot of damage to it. And you know what? I never dreamed he'd get it going, and pretty soon he got it well enough together that he built a steam engine. He turned the metal down to make shafts, turned another pipe down to make a cylinder, and made the piston, put it all together, and it ran. You know, just things like that. You know, you just kind of remember.
That's like a mechanical engineer.
Well, you know, really, I think he's an electrical engineer, and I think he could have been a mechanical engineer very easily.
It sounds like what the path he chose combines the both.
Yeah.
Combines the two. Let's see. Bob followed Carmen to Puerto Rico, facing both language and cultural challenges. How do you think this demonstrates his trait of determination?
Well, Bob's strengths and determination probably show up in his ability to think he's speaking Spanish. Nobody can understand his Spanish but him. He's got all these people in his family, you know, Carmen's mother, you know, over there. We get amazed at him trying to communicate. So we tease him a lot about his Spanish.
It's his own little.
Huh?
He has his own dialect.
Well, yeah, and it's hilarious.
How did you learn that Bob was going to work in Florida alongside Howard Culver for a communications company?
You know, I really don't remember. I knew he was down here, but, you know, I was busy at the time. I don't really know how that came about.
Family grapevine, maybe.
Yeah, but
Okay, think back to the early days of Bob's business when it was a small company. Tell us what you remember about Bob's work schedule, his drive to succeed, and his business strategy.
Bob, the first shop I remember, Bob shared a shop with another guy. I think his name was Tim, if I remember right. And Tim sold CBs, which was the scourge. If you were selling big radio, CBs looked like junk, you know. And so we always teased Bob about having a glorified CB shop down here. And so when I would come down, my wife and I would come down quite a bit, and I would just go to work, you know, help Bob do what we could. It was impressive when I come down to see that he had started doing work for the sheriff's department, putting lights and sirens on it. He knows there's a story I'm going to tell about this because it was a pretty decent one. But it shocked me that he was able to get ingrained in the local departments that quick. So somehow he got an in there. I don't know if it was him or Howard or what the deal was, but I was impressed.
And he worked a lot of hours.
Oh, I suspect. When I was down here, we played a lot. That was in my drinking days. I haven't drank in 25 years, so it was.
Okay, let's see. How do you think Bob has driven his business through his leadership style to success?
His leadership style for his business is amazing. He leads by example when he does something. You know, he doesn't ask people to do more than what he would do to succeed also. He picks people that reflect a lot of his personality and his drive and his ability. And I think it makes it very easy for him to work with the people down there. And it always looked to me like he had great loyalty. And loyalty was a really important thing to Bob. You could be wrong, but you could be loyal, and it would help.
That's good. He was 32 when he took the reins of sole leadership of Communications International. How did you and your siblings feel about this bold move?
You know what? Truthfully, I don't remember too much about him starting on his own. I knew when it happened, but truthfully, we expected it.
Okay.
You know, he was a go-getter.
Why do you?
Second?
Yeah.
It's not a big deal, but every now and again, I'm just hitting that. So move you a little lower. Excuse me. Okay, that'll be perfect. All right.
Why do you think Communications International has been so successful?
I think communication was successful because they came into the market right when they needed someone else in the market here. There was a company that was a big company that was monopolizing. Is that right? Monopolizing the radio business, and GE was not that well known here. And I think Bob was a good salesperson for GE, and he made it work. I think he was very opportunistic with this.
How do you think Bob has earned his success?
Oh, Bob earned his success by staying with it. He was not one to party when there was work to be done. He doesn't live as lavish a lifestyle as what probably he could in my book. He still goes in every day. He told me today, he goes, I was only back one day, and he goes, now I'm off with you a day. He goes, I'll bet they're wondering what I'm doing. At his age and his success,
And he's officially retired.
yes, he really is. Officially.
Mike told us he can't get rid of him.
Yeah, that's Mike. That's just a nephew.
Yeah. Successful entrepreneurs rarely give up. How has Bob demonstrated this?
Well, I think Bob just demonstrated not giving up with your last statement. Mike says he can't get rid of him.
But I know through the years there have been challenges. I'm sure all businesses face challenges, but he never gave up.
You know what, Bob has had a few bumps in the road, and you know what? I think what he did the last time was he pulled family in. He got my brother Danny. Did you interview Dan? Okay, Dan retired from the Air Force, did some training, and then came to work for Bob. That was a big loyalty play on Bob's part. Bob knew that Danny would always have his back. If there was something going on, Danny, and also Danny's son Mike. So that was a big deal. Brother Larry worked here for a while, and that was right after Bob had a problem. And so I think that was a move that he made. And you know what? It flourished. He did really well after that.
He didn't give up.
He didn't give up.
Okay. Can you share a time that Bob or Communications International had to overcome an obstacle? You just made reference to that. Do you have anything else you want to add?
No, I don't want to talk anything more about that.
Okay. What type of role model is Bob for the younger family members, including his children?
Bob is a role model to almost our whole family. Yeah, I've got 4 kids, and the oldest is about 42, 43. And they aren't down here much, but Bob, they know Bob. Everybody loves Bob. They've always admired the way he acts. He teases. He acts like he knows you instantly as soon as you see him. He keeps track. When we get down here, he'll say, well, now, what's their kids' names? And try, so when they do come in, he can call them by name. Things like that are important to him. His children, do you know Robin and Ryan? Really great kids. And they had good leaders. Him and Carmen both were very good parents.
Yeah, they're outstanding people. Have you observed Bob passing on his wisdom to his children? What types of things does he teach them?
I think Bob taught especially Ryan, he taught Ryan to delve into areas that Ryan was interested in. Years ago, Ryan was installing stereos into cars. And you know what? Bob had a shop out in the garage here where Ryan could pull something in. And I'm sure that if Ryan ran into a problem, Bob was out there to say, hey, you know what? Look here, maybe this is it. I don't think he'd go in and fix it, but he'd tell Ryan how to troubleshoot it.
He was helping him follow his dreams.
Exactly. And, it was kind of like Bob was taught. When you're raising kids, I think you can say, well, I had a terrible childhood, but you can either be mad about that or you can correct it and teach your kids the right way. That's,
Right.
and I think that's what he did.
Let's see. What's the best part about having Bob as a brother?
Bob and I are in sync a lot. We compare our wives a lot. We think, you know, they're a lot alike, and they seem to think that they put up with a lot of gruff from us, and you know, we think we put up with a lot from them. It's always, I can be at work up in Illinois, and I'll say, hey, what's going on? And you know, he'll just flash back something like what he's doing. We just kind of keep in touch a lot, and we're just in sync. We've always been that way.
That's how I was with my sister
Yeah.
Carla.
Isn't it comforting?
Yeah.
It really is. And
Yep, it is. The criteria for the Entrepreneur of the Year award is a business founder or leader who gives back to the community. Why do you think Bob deserves this award?
I know he's very generous around here and other organizations that he's involved in. I was really impressed with what he did with the university over in on the other side of Florida. Is it what town's it in?
Lakeland.
Lakeland. Okay, and he was very proud of that too. I think that was an achievement. I think he wanted to. It's kind of like pass it on. The school that he was helping over there, or working to get going, promoted his thinking, his type of thinking, and I think he's very proud to help that. And I think that might have been his biggest achievement in the last few years.
His work on the board there?
Yes,
as a
yes,
trustee?
and yes, I think so.
Could we try to get a statement where he says Florida Polytechnic in it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I could, and it's in Lakeland.
It's Florida Polytechnic University in Lakeland.
Okay,
And repeat the biggest achievement you
Biggest,
think,
yeah.
Okay.
biggest accomplishment.
accomplishment.
the biggest accomplishment that I think Bob had as far as giving back to the community was his involvement in Florida Polytech in Lakeland, Florida. I think he was very excited to do that, and I think he was excited to meet the people that were involved in that. And it also promoted his ideas on his way of thinking and learning. Somebody's coming to the front door.
That was a great
I think we
answer.
got it, yeah.
Okay.
Good.
Perfect.
There's only one other question, then like I said, I'll give you a chance to say anything you want to, but we're back a little bit on the retirement. Do you think Bob will ever retire?
I don't think so. I think Bob, as far as retirement goes, he's doing just what he wants to do now. He told me last night he was very excited about a project he was working on, and he said that he engineered it. And I said, I thought you were out of it. And he goes, well, you know, I engineered it and I passed it off to, I forget who, another gentleman. And we back and forth with it several times. And he goes, you know what? He goes, I still like to be involved. And I think when you can have your cake and eat it too, I think that's what he's doing.
He seems very happy.
Oh, he is. You know what? Family and work are really important to him. He really likes family, but he really likes work.
Okay. Anything else, Monique? Areas we need to redo, Jimmy, Chris?
No, that was it.
Did you have
I
anything?
want to tell you, Bob wanted me to do this interview with a sack over my head and eyes cut out.
And you got to tell your funny story.
Well, I was trying to. What
Was there another
was it? There was a one about Bob? All of us Stork kids are known for our ability to mess with fire.
Oh, yeah.
And so I remember specifically, we had a house out in the country. It was a big house, and there wasn't anybody around us. Had a full basement, and Bob was trying to change the recipe for gunpowder. And there's 3 elements of gunpowder: there's carbon, saltpeter, and nitrate. And so we had this big table that we used to butcher cattle on. We would cut the meat up and everything. And I was standing there by Bob, and he had a big pan of gunpowder mixed up here, and he had a little pan here, and he would take the ingredients and he would put a little more saltpeter in and a little less carbon and mix it up, and then he would light it. and trying to see what he could change about gunpowder. Because, everybody thinks you put a match to gunpowder, it blows up. It doesn't. It's got to be packed. So I was standing right beside him, and I saw him. He mixed up a batch, and he lit it, and I saw this spark go from that pan over to the big pan. And gunpowder just smokes up. You'll fill a room up in no time. It started smoking, filling the basement up, and I saw him grab the pan, and he ran up 5 steps that got you to our garage. You could turn and go to the kitchen or go out to the garage, and he dumped the pan of gunpowder on the wooden landing right there, and it burned a hole right through the ground. Boy, did he get yelled at. That was...
Was that the time Susanna told us that your parents said if he did one more thing, he was getting kicked out of the family?
It might have been, because that was big. That, when you couldn't walk down the steps to get out the garage, they knew where to draw the line. They weren't completely crazy.
She said that you guys took up a collection for
Yeah.
Okay, tell me about that.
Well, you know what? I didn't have any money, so I might have taken it from my brother Larry. I don't really know.
Well, I guess it's good he didn't get voted out of the family.
Uh,
Or
He-
voted off the island.
Another thing, another story that we had a big old corn crib south of the house. And it was our job to tear it down. I mean, it was 40 foot tall, and it was old wood and everything. Dad said, you know what? You guys go up there and tear that down. Well, a corn crib has a big V in the middle to let air go through, and it lets the air go up in the corn. So it also had big timbers in it. And Bob, and I don't know if it was Larry, got a 40-foot timber. A timber was about 8 foot wide and about 8 foot thick, and it was 40 foot long. And we had most of the inside of the corn crib tore out, but this V, they flattened it, and they put this timber up there, and it was the biggest teeter-totter in the country. You would go up 40 foot this way, and you prayed that the other guys didn't jump off when you got sent up there. That was a blast. We used to go up there. We left the teeter-totter up for quite a while.
40 feet.
Don't get off.
Yeah. Well, you didn't want your enemies on the other end.
It's like having Inspector Gadget in your family.
Well,
I know,
there
it
was
sounds
a.
like you guys probably lived in a place where you had to make your own fun.
You know what? That's it exactly. That we didn't have neighbors.
YouTube or-
Yeah.
Let's-
We used to dig. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead and answer that. Tell us about that.
Yeah.
About what?
About making your own fun.
Oh, you know what? When we used to have a lot of snow. It doesn't seem like it snows that much in Illinois anymore. But when we were kids, we would have 8, 9 foot drifts from our house out to the shop, and we would dig a tunnel into this drift where you could crawl, and it would stay all winter. Just crazy things like that. And, we would all work together building these tunnels, which was kind of neat. All my friends from school, they ran around kids in the neighborhood. You had to be friends with your brothers and sisters. And so it makes us very close today. We travel together as a family, brothers and sisters, and it is just the most fun. Because you remember stories or, you used to be mean to me or you did this to me, It's very comforting. That's it.
What I need you to say is when growing up the way we did, you had to make your own fun.
Okay?
Just that statement to her.
To me.
Yeah, say it one more time.
Growing up maybe on the farm.
Okay.
We had to make
So when we were young, growing up on the farm, we had to make our own fun. There was nobody else around, so you learned to interact with your brothers and sisters.
Perfect. Yeah.
I got one more.
Okay.
How come we didn't interview you?
I don't know.
I'm
You don't let him talk.
I'm the guy that has to put it together.
okay. All right.
We know what. Yeah.
So what I'm wondering is just about Bob personality-wise. We talked a lot about his activities, but maybe just, was he quiet? Was he loud? Was he nice? Was he grumpy?
Just adjectives.
Just when Bob growing up was this kind of kid. Serious, mature. What was he like growing up?
Was he a diplomat? Was
when-
he an instigator? What did he do?
You know, really, Bob growing up, he wasn't loud. You know, he didn't dominate a room, but you know, you felt him working behind you. He was behind the scenes, and he was usually a step ahead. You know, come to find out. I don't remember him ever blowing up, getting mad. So, you know, I don't think he had a big temper. I think if you really crossed him, he probably could, but never saw it. Bob just, you know, Bob, I don't know. More than that?
No, that was pretty
That was
good.
good.
Okay, because I just,
Okay.
Yeah, perfect.
Like, he's a thinker.
it's like describe your sister.
Yeah.
You know?
I get it.